Jack trudged down the quiet street, his breath visible in the frigid winter air, the plastic grocery bags in his hands swaying with each step. Streetlights cast pools of pale yellow light onto the icy sidewalk, their glow struggling to pierce the heavy gloom of the evening. As he approached the bus stop, the stillness was broken only by the faint hum of distant traffic and the crunch of snow under his boots. That's when he saw her, a young woman in military fatigues, standing alone beneath the flickering bus stop light. Her shoulders were slightly hunched, her gloved hands tucked into her armpits as though she were holding herself together against the cold. The dull green of her uniform contrasted starkly with the snow-dusted pavement, and beside her sat a well-worn backpack, the kind that had seen miles of travel and hardship. Jack's gaze lingered on her face, there was something in her eyes that went beyond the chill in the air. A quiet, heavy sadness that spoke of long days and silent burdens. She didn't shift or look around much, just stared ahead at the empty road, as if waiting for something that might never come. Jack slowed his pace, his instincts kicking in. He wasn't sure what pulled at him more, the sight of her shivering in the biting wind or the sense that she was carrying far more than the weight of her pack. Something told him that this moment wasn't just about passing a stranger at a bus stop. Jack hesitated only a moment before stepping closer, the snow crunching louder now in the still night air. The young soldier turned her head slightly, her eyes meeting his with a guarded, almost wary look. Up close, he could see the weariness etched into her face, fine lines of exhaustion and the faint redness around her eyes, as though she'd fought back tears not long ago. "Cold night to be waiting," Jack said gently, his tone more observation than question. She gave a small, polite nod, her breath escaping in a white puff. He asked if she was heading somewhere, and after a pause, she replied softly, "Trying to get to a friend's place, but the bus won't be here for a while." Jack glanced at the posted schedule and frowned, it would be nearly 2 hours before the next one arrived, if it even ran on time in this weather. He learned her name was Emily, and that she'd just returned from deployment that morning. Her voice carried a mixture of pride and fatigue, as though each word cost her effort. She had no family nearby, and the friend she hoped to visit wasn't even sure she could stay the night. Jack's grip on the grocery bags tightened. Without thinking too much, he heard himself say, "You're coming with me." Emily's eyes widened in surprise. For a heartbeat, she seemed ready to refuse, but something in his steady, open expression made her reconsider. Slowly, she gave a small nod, as if choosing to trust a stranger in the cold. They walked side by side through the quiet streets, their breath hanging in the frosty air. Jack shifted his grocery bags to one hand so he could offer her the other, but Emily shook her head politely, clutching the straps of her backpack as if it were a lifeline. Snow crunched beneath their boots, and for a while, the only sound was the wind brushing past the bare trees. Jack didn't push her to talk, he simply matched her pace, giving her space to settle into the silence. Eventually, she spoke, her voice low. She told him she'd been stationed overseas for almost a year, and coming home didn't feel like home anymore. Her parents had moved away, her old apartment was gone, and most of her friends had scattered. "Feels like I came back to nothing," she admitted, glancing at the ground. Jack felt a tug in his chest. He knew that hollow feeling all too well, he'd felt it after his wife passed, when the world seemed to keep moving while he stood still. "You've got something now," he said quietly. "A warm meal, and a safe place for the night. That's a start." Emily didn't answer right away, but when Jack risked a glance, he caught the faintest smile tugging at her lips. It wasn't much, but it was enough to tell him he'd done the right thing. As they turned onto his street, the small glow of his porch light felt like a beacon cutting through the cold, promising comfort after a long and weary journey. Jack pushed open the front door, and the warmth of the house enveloped them like a soft blanket. The scent of fresh coffee lingered from earlier in the day, mixing with the faint aroma of pine from a small Christmas tree in the corner. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, came running in from the living room, her eyes lighting up when she saw her father, and then widening in curiosity at the sight of the uniformed stranger behind him. "Hi," Lily said shyly, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Emily offered a gentle smile and crouched to meet her gaze. "Hi there," she replied softly, her voice carrying a tenderness that contrasted the discipline in her posture. Jack introduced them, explaining that Emily would be staying for the night. Lily's hesitation melted instantly, and she grabbed Emily's hand, tugging her toward the couch. Jack set down the groceries and began making dinner, listening to the sound of his daughter peppering Emily with questions about where she'd been, what the army was like, and if she'd ever driven a tank. Emily laughed, really laughed, for the first time that evening, the sound filling the room like music. As the three of them sat down to eat, Jack noticed how naturally Emily fit into the space, as though she'd been there many times before. There was no awkwardness, only a quiet, unexpected sense of belonging. Watching Lily lean against Emily's arm as they ate, Jack felt something shift. Like the start of a story none of them had seen coming, but one they all needed. Later that night, the house had grown still, the only sound the soft ticking of the clock in the hallway. Jack stood in the doorway to the guest room, watching as Emily sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers over the handmade quilt his late wife had sewn years ago. She looked up, and for a moment, her tough, soldier-like composure slipped away, replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not just for the place to stay, but for seeing me." Jack nodded, his throat tight. "We all need someone to see us," he replied. Emily hesitated, then admitted she'd been planning to spend the night at the bus stop, not knowing where to go next. Jack felt a deep ache imagining her out there in the cold, alone. "You don't have to figure everything out tonight," he told her. "Rest. Tomorrow's another day." She gave a small nod, her eyes glistening, and for the first time in a long while, her shoulders relaxed. As Jack quietly closed the door, he realized this wasn't just about offering shelter, it was about connection, about the kind of kindness that could pull someone back from the edge. In the quiet darkness, both knew that this brief crossing of paths had already left a mark, a reminder that sometimes the most life-changing moments happen when you least expect them, and that no one truly heals alone.